His ride came back to pick him up. Finds a dead body. The guy killed himself. He couldn't take the pain anymore. Pain was so bad he couldn't wait the 1 or 2 weeks for his ride to come back. Shot himself. Left a suicide note telling his story. What is far deadlier than most people realize? Trucker here. I've had 2 blood clots in my legs from driving long distances and having my leg pressed against the corner of the seat for hours on end. One almost killed me. Apparently it's very common with truckers. You're supposed to stop and walk around every hour and a half to keep things circulating, which almost nobody does due to time constraints. The same thing happens in gaming chairs apparently. People forget to move their legs because they're so focused on the game. You don't need to worry so much if you're younger, but if you're a gamer who's a little older, please be aware. Deep vein thrombosis, DVT, is a well-documented effect of long-haul flights too, which is why pilots who fly long-haul and ultra-long-haul flights lasting more than 10 hours wear pressure socks. Passengers are advised to walk around the cabin once every few hours. With flights lasting up to 18 hours, this is a necessity. Get the blood moving. If any of these clots somehow dislodge and reach your heart, it is goodbye. Holding your breath while scuba diving. To most people who don't scuba dive, it may sound harmless, but if you hold your breath under even a little over a meter, you can suffer major lung damage as a result of the gas in your lungs expanding from the lessening pressure. When I was training to dive, my instructor took a gallon milk jug down with us and he filled it half full with air and brought it upwards, explaining what he would do before we went down. It didn't take long before it filled completely with air and blew the cap off as we were going up. When we got to the surface, he said, "Imagine that was your lungs." Absolutely. I'm a submariner, an old-ish one. So I've had the pleasure of doing pressurized escape training. Before our first ascent, to send the message home that holding breath is a death sentence, we had a similar demo, only with an empty wine bag instead of a milk jug. Edit. Since a question popped up, just wanted to clarify, I'm not a diving expert, I just know how to try and survive in a very specific scenario. Divers know far more about this, they like getting wet. If I'm getting wet, something has gone wrong. Essential oils. Do not put them in your food, they are not made to be food safe. Some of them are capable of burning a hole in your esophagus. Why people think they're food? They, shady MLMs, also recommend using the oils on babies and children. They can cause chemical burns. Heard about one story where a newborn baby had to be on IVs, but the mom was obsessed with essential oils. So she snuck in and rubbed some on her baby, which then got into the 4th wounds. That's totally fucked up. Smoke. It's not only the fire that can kill you, and there is a very good reason you're taught to stay low escaping a fire. The smoke is a hot gas layer that can melt your face off. And that's forgetting the lung damage that it can do. I survived a house fire when I was 12. 25 years later, I still have to explain the scarring on my lungs when I have a chest X-ray. I have also developed a long-term respiratory illness. I don't really complain, though, since if my dad had woken up 5 minutes later, we would all have died. Touching shit inside a guitar amp can fuck you up really bad. It holds a charge, and it all comes out at once if you touch the wrong spot. Anything with big capacitors follows this rule. That includes anything with an AC power supply. Burned the shit out of my hand a few times on disposable camera capacitors when I was a kid. They're no joke. I used to work at a camera/film store and we developed film. We would do disposable cameras. One day I was taking one apart to get the film out and zapped myself. Yelled and swore, then demanded the manager tell me all the other things in the place that could hurt me that I did not know about. Going for runs on the roads at night without wearing lights or reflectors. Oftentimes people even wear black. They think that just because they can see the car that the car can see them. It only takes one accident to change someone's life completely. As an avid runner, I want to add to this. Running with the flow of traffic. I see people doing this all the time and it drives me nuts. Make yourself as visible as possible and make everything else as visible as possible to you. Face traffic, folks. I'm a former runner myself, and I was biking behind a runner the other day. He had headphones in, and he was walking in the middle of the biking path. Now, that particular biking path wasn't very wide, and scooters, the Vespa type, are allowed on those paths as well. And they can go fast. Plus, at times, the biking paths merge with the car roads, and then cars are behind him. So he was going with the flow, couldn't hear anything and couldn't see behind him. No lights on him, no reflectors. I waved at him as I passed, and he took out his headphones. I told him it would be safer if he crossed the street and went against traffic, and he immediately did this annoyed wave, with a scrunched up face, and said "Ugh, F off." Not gonna lie, I biked off, saying out loud, "Sure, I'll F off. Get hit by a scooter or a car at some point, have at it, buddy. PFFT, F off. Dick." Testicular torsion. Don't be embarrassed to ask for help. In all honesty, the embarrassment is all in your head. Doctors and nurses really don't give a fuck. They really don't care, and aren't judging you one bit. They have seen everything, and then some more. But they will judge you if you made the foolish decision not to seek help cause of made-up embarrassment which made you lose your balls. The pain might not be severe, but you have a few hours tops before your balls die. I had emergency surgery to fix testicular torsion. I went to the ER because my right ball was very tender and painful to touch, and they ordered an ultrasound to confirm it was twisted. When the doctor returned, he said I was being booked in for surgery that day, otherwise I'd lose it. Went in at 10 a.m. and left at 6 p.m. with a stitched up sack. Wasn't very fun. Engulfment and confined spaces. With confined spaces, people usually don't realize that O2 runs out rather quickly. Engulfment because people probably don't think about essentially drowning in non-liquids. Flowing solid materials don't even have to cover your nose to asphyxiate you. Anything above belly button level will slowly constrict your diaphragm each time you breathe out. Just like a boa constrictor. I fell into a flashing vat of shirt buttons once when I was about 13 years old. My dad was the plant manager of a shirt button factory in Knoxville, Tennessee back in the early 1980s. He and I were there on a Saturday morning. He was doing paperwork, and I was exploring the plant. Got to the section where the flashing tanks were and tried to lean over and scoop up a handful of buttons. Lost my balance and fell in. It was about 5 to 6 feet deep, but filled with plastic shirt buttons. I went all the way to the bottom. I was able to stand up and then stand on the top of the mixing blades that were turned off. Took forever to get out. The buttons like squeezed me as I tried to move. Scariest moment of my life. I don't even let my kids do the whole bury me in sand at the beach thing. Terrible memories of that. I know of a dude who was being buried in sand at the beach by his family and died when the rocky layer underneath the sand shifted, opening a void into which he was sucked. Scary shit. Hey, thanks for the brand new nightmare. Post-it safety precautions. When there are signs saying something, lots ignore thinking they know better. I used to work IT for a place that makes big tractors. Different stations are restricted from using certain personal protective equipment. One day this lady was wearing the wrong gloves. Her station is only supposed to use latex. She didn't take that seriously and wore thicker reinforced gloves. She was using the lug nut machine that tightens 12 giant lugs at once. Her glove got caught, and instead of ripping the fingertip off of a latex glove, it ripped her thumb right the fuck off her hand. I witnessed it, and her mistake haunts me to this day. They had to restrain her while two men held her hand up in the air away from her. Her wails and screams were terrifying. All because she ignored a well-placed warning. If there's a warning sign posted, I usually assume it's because someone already fed up and had that exact thing happen to them. Visine. People seem to have this idea that a few drops of visine in someone's drink will give them diarrhea, and do it to prank each other, or get some sort of satisfaction with petty revenge. People are sitting in prison for murder for doing this. The main active ingredient is called tetrahydrozoline. Once it enters your gastrointestinal tract, it can be absorbed by your intestines and end up in your blood, causing your blood pressure and heart rate to drop to potentially life-threatening levels. It really makes me wonder how many people have died due to people copycatting that scene in Wedding Crashers. Just never, ever put anything in anybody's food or drink that they didn't ask for. Ever. You never know what medication they're on, or what condition they have that could make them react to something seemingly harmless. Just want to throw a story out here. I'm a dentist. I have a colleague who had a patient that needed a root canal. The patient put it off. He had a vacation coming up. He was going to Alaska in bush country to go hunting by himself. Now Alaska bush country means you're alone. He was dropped off and his ride wasn't going to come back to pick him up for a week or two. Well, after his ride left, the tooth he needed to get his root canal on blew up. Had severe pain and was all alone, no one to help him in the middle of nowhere. This was mid to late 90s, so no cell phone either. Well, his ride came back to pick him up. Finds a dead body. The guy killed himself. He couldn't take the pain anymore. Pain was so bad he couldn't wait the 1 or 2 weeks for his ride to come back. Shot himself, left a suicide note telling his story. Moral of the story: don't put this shit off. There is no pain like tooth pain. On my way to brush my teeth. Grapefruit in combination with many prescription drugs. Basically, grapefruit can affect the way your medications work. With some meds, adding grapefruit screws up the way your body metabolizes the drug, so you end up with far more than the prescribed dosage. It can also work in the opposite way with other drugs, leaving you with less than the prescribed dosage. This is especially bad if you have high blood pressure or arrhythmia. Shift work. The disturbance in your circadian rhythm takes years off your life. I worked a 12-hour shift work job for a year that rotated between days and nights. I call it the blackout year because it's a giant year-long hole in my memory. All I did was eat, sleep and work. Struggled with indigestion regularly. Completely awful way to live. That should be considered a form of torture. Sleep deprivation is an actual method of torture. But I guess it doesn't count when it happens due to work. Work is torture. Touchscreen consoles in cars. Mazda now disables touch functionality in their vehicles because they found that when drivers interact with the touchscreen, they drift the vehicle to the right, taking your eyes off the road to press 3 buttons in 3 different positions on the touchscreen, with a latency each time you press a button, because your seat heaters are literally burning your ass while trying to maintain control of the vehicle during freeway traffic is goddamn dangerous. A driving instructor once put it this way: if you're on the highway and you look away for 3 seconds, you have driven the length of an American football field without looking at the road. Heard the same sentiment in a driving safety video the other day. I am not saying you should ever take your eyes off the road to use a touchscreen, but 3 seconds is way longer than most people think. Unless you are texting, nothing should take that long to add to this. Just do not text and drive. It can wait. Thanks for watching, all of you. Don't forget to like the video. Did you know, watching any of the videos from the suggestions here can be highly addictive? Do not click it. I repeat, do not click it.